Hey, what's up guys? We're in the next part. Okay, so yes, in the last part I basically ended with people not fretting themselves over the ones who prosper, ways of the ones who prosper in their way. That staircase going down with those people not even facing the kinds of perils that I was facing and trying to go down is evidence of the fact that sometimes God just lets the wicked, since they've seared their conscience, survive feats that most of us get killed by, and the reason that is the case is in order to arrest us with the right level of fear to not basically finish ourselves off the way that they finished themselves off. In my dream I had a great deal of fear, like an incredible fear of heights, that I would plunge to my demise. What does that fear of heights also represent metaphorically? What was that dream trying to show me? I'm interpreting now too, as I tell you the dream. I was speaking about the fear of the Lord, which is the beginning of wisdom. Knowledge of the Holy One brings understanding. The fear of the Lord is the fear of Him who has got power to do what? Cast your whole body and soul into the eternal lake of fire. God says do not fear man, but rather fear God. Man can only kill the body and thereafter do what? Zilch nada. Whereas God himself can take that body once it's being killed and cast it into eternal fire, which is what He will do with the wicked. At the second death, He will kill them and burn them forever. Do you understand what I'm saying? So in that fear, in that dream, I had a fear of plunging to my demise. I.e. falling from grace, falling from God. That's what it meant. And I stayed in that one area and I was holding on to a water feature because I was scared that I would ultimately fall. Lo and behold, guess what happened next? In my dream, there came a man in that dream, and he was wearing yellow pants and a red shirt. I remember his clothing properly. A white man, and he was middle-aged. His age is relevant. I don't think his race has anything to do with it, but his age is definitely relevant. The fact that he was a middle-aged white man matters. He was a citizen of this metropolis. He was a man that had already given his life over to this metropolis, obviously. He was not, walking like everybody. He was a glider. And he rocked up from, I don't know, Wapunyuga from behind me, right? Remember, I'm holding on in the middle of the staircase that's just scary. And I'm scared that I'm going to die to plunge to my death. If I dare still continue to go down, I'm really scared. I'm arrested by the fear of falling. And then this white man comes basically flying. I remember the citizens of this joint who belong to it have got post-human powers. They've got transhuman abilities. He was not walking, he was gliding. This middle-aged white man was wearing a red shirt and yellow pants. This is important. Why? Me and me only. This is about how I view these colors. So it's not for you to go and interpret these colors in your dreams similarly too. There are people who have dreamt about Christ having a red sash on his robe. That does not always mean what it means for me. Whenever I see the color red in my dream, it always represents witchcraft because of my undertones, my history, how God explains things to me based on how I've gazed upon them. The color red, I've always seen it very much in ancestral worshipping circles by witches. They are always putting the blood of goats on their heads. They have got these dreadlocks that are reddish in color. The beads that they wear, there's a lot of red in their attire, lots of red and black and white too, right? So every time I see the color red, for me, ever since I came to Christ, I've always been able to just in my dreams identify it as representing witchcraft and death. If it's blood, then it's death. It's linked to death. But if it's just the color itself, it's witchcraft. Okay? That is my interpretation because of my cultural nuances, my background, my understanding. So please do not interpret red in your own dream as that. Because like I said, some people dream with Christ having a red sash across his his robes. That red ain't nasty. Of course, because it's on Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Cool. Yellow, for whatever reason, I can't even tell you why there, has always represented fear. It's just this color that I associate with danger, ngozi. Almost like red, yellow for me is amber. It's amber. It's the middle color in the robot. It's just for me, danger. Every time I would see in my life warnings of this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. It's always flashed red, even on the street. Cat lights on the highway are yellow to warn you that if you go over this, you're in another lane, you could die. So I've always associated the color yellow with fear, like just look out, danger, ngozi. If you go there, yeah, okay. So this dude was rocking, this middle-aged white man was rocking yellow pants and a red shirt. evidencing basically that he was a man that was heavily inebriated, involved in witchcraft, and he was now living in constant fear. His pants were yellow, his shirt was red. Witchcraft, a lifestyle of it, has now landed him in nothing but fear. He lives in 24-hour fear. It likely also makes sense that his legs, it was his pants that were in yellow, because the life that he was walking, the lifestyle that he was, basically that was covering his nakedness, was one of fear. He could not walk in a natural, relaxed state because he was scared of something. And this man rocking red shirt, yellow pants, was one of the gliders and the hoverers. But when he came from behind me, he was depressed. He was melancholic. He was macabre. He was a middle-aged white man, and he was fed up with this life. He was sick and tired with this darkness. And I remember he came from the podium, the pavilion, the uppermost part of it. Remember, I was down one staircase and I was stranded there. He came, hovered over. No longer, when you were a citizen of this joint, you didn't have to, like I said, walk. You glided, you basically hovered. So nobody in this environment that was a citizen of this ominous metropolis was ever in danger of tripping and falling, because they were always just gliding, if you know what I mean. So him coming from behind me over the staircase, he was not climbing down, he was hovering over it, going down. But he had a deliberate intention to die. He was suicidal. He was tired of living. He didn't want to survive. He wanted to end his life because he was exhausted with this, but he had no way out. He had turned his back from Jesus altogether. He had no options. He was a witch living in fear, or a sorcerer living in fear. And he was exhausted with this life, and he was in his middle age. And he came hovering over me. And as soon as he came past me, a whiff of suicide came into my core. I understood that he was actively committing suicide, that what he was doing was an act of suicide. He was depressed. Nobody could tell him anything. Nobody could negotiate him out of this at all. And this man hovered over me, and it's almost as if though he flew across the expanse to get to a point where he would just release himself and then only fall to his demise. Remember, everybody here hovered as they walked, but it was a conscious effort to hover or to walk. But if you were not if you were sleeping, you were not in your sleep hovering or walking, because you were sleeping in your bed. So if you had detached your own understanding from the fact that you want to hover, or you want to be floating on thin air, basically, if you detached that conscious effort to actually hover, you then would be subjugated to gravity. You would just fall. You had to be actively desirous to hover, to actually walk and hover instead of glide. It's an easy what is this, not easy is right, but like quick money, easy money, just compromise yourself type place here where you live. It's an ideology based environment. Like, you get ahead based on ideology, not so much on your own skills, talent, and effort that you put into anything you do, right? So the hovering and the gliding likely also explains just the ease of existence in this place. All you need to do is just accept an ideology, not so much be good at what you do. Yeah, so therefore you had to consciously hover. You had to will your brain, but will your legs to be raised above the ground to successfully hover. So meaning therefore that you could also will your mind to stop hovering and just be subjugated to gravity. This man wanted to die. So he went to the uppermost part of this city, this raccoon city, and he hovered for a season until he was at a lofty enough height above one particular company, and then abandoned his will to keep hovering so he could plunge to his suicide. And I watched him fall to his death, guys. I watched him commit suicide that way. He hovered, continued to incline as he was hovering, even higher than where it is that I was at. Remember, I was already at a pinnacle. I was already at a bird's eye view, and this dude hovered even higher than it. He hovered even higher than one of the company that he was working for. He hovered higher than it, and then once he got to a satisfactory height, he abandoned his will to keep hovering, and he fell to his death. And people just watched him. They knew he was about to commit suicide, all the citizens of this land. They knew he was about to commit suicide. So much so that did they know, guys, that Coroners were already ready to kill. Guys, this dream was so evil. Coroners were already parked, like at the bottom. They saw him coming from the mountaintop there, where I was at, the heighted pavilion, and there was, marked vehicles that looked like ambulances, which I can connote to being coroner's vans. They were just waiting for him to finish doing what he was doing so they could collect his remains and take him away. He fell. People watched him, and as soon as he was splat, the coroners came, collected his body, cleaned up the area, and life carried on as normal. No one grieved, no one mourned, no one cried. He couldn't even explain why he was suicidal, nothing. He was just that miserable. And after that man fell, as you guys, I was already in my own fear, right? Where I was at, because I was scared that I was going to plunge to my death. This man committed suicide in front of everybody, and nobody cared. Everybody just carried on as normal. My fear intensified when I saw this man's death. When I saw him die, I was like, oh my goodness, nobody here cares about anyone. Who's gonna rescue me from this compromised state? Who's gonna rescue me from this position? Because I'm scared to climb up and go back to where I was at, and I'm also scared to finish going all the way down. I'm scared. I was just stranded and stuck, and after that man fell, I knew that I couldn't even ask anybody for help, because he was left to commit suicide, and they just waited to collect his body. So what that man was representing in my dream, he was representing people who sell their souls to the devil, live a satanic lifestyle for a very long time, but somewhere along the way they get exhausted with no love, with no compassion, no mercy, no real family, no real values, no the glory of youth. I can think of better days. People that are always thinking about how life was better when I wasn't a witch. It was so much easier. I had all these friends and I loved them and they loved me. There was no constant backstabbing and everything was just sweeter. Witchcraft is a snare, guys. It's fool's gold. I can't say it enough. I've got so many former friends, family members, and acquaintances, randoms and that put witchcraft on me, that God keeps on showing me them being in a very depressed state because they can't live normal lives anymore. They are unable to have normal relationships. They don't trust anyone. They don't trust anyone because since they're witches, they think everyone is into it. So everybody they go and they collect a protection spell to protect them. Like if they have a falling out with a colleague, just a falling out in the office, that tomorrow maybe you just go back to normal, please. Like life happens, people fight. Based on that falling out alone, they will visit a sangoma on some, please make sure this person doesn't put witchcraft on me, because they're witches. They think everyone, upon being upset with you, fighting with your girlfriend, uzongi tagata, so they protect themselves, or they take the spell out first before somebody else can do it. They don't trust anyone. They think the world is full of people like them. That is a paranoid schizophrenic living a life that looks normal right there. That's what that eventuality is. And on top of it, who wants to live in a world where they can't trust anyone? Who do you put on your will? And who do you let know your deepest, darkest secrets just in case you get sick? If at all anything happens to you, who can you give as your next of kin when you are scared of everybody? You don't trust anyone when you are a witch because of the understanding of what you've done to people. So because you're that evil and you were easily duped for that world, you imagine everybody else is just like you with an easy conscience, okay? With a loose conscience. You just run amok when anybody just calls you to run amok. And you go running. Due to their lack of trust of everybody, the quality of their lives is just substandard. They don't trust husbands, they don't trust wives, they don't even trust kids, they don't trust pets, because animals can be used in witchcraft rituals because of what they've seen and the level of evil that they have gazed upon, observed. They have put a cloak of that random rubbish on everybody. They're like Adam and Eve who eat the apple, the fruit in the garden. Now they see good and evil, and all of a sudden they recognize their own nakedness because of that fruit of deception that they consumed. They now see the nakedness of the world. They see how evil this place can get. It was evil already. It was bad already, like friends backstabbing each other, gossip. Now it's another level of evil. It's a new depth. People in the occult murder other human beings without being getting caught, without getting busted. They destroy careers. They bring people low. They shatter. They marry wives by force. Like people like those have eaten the forbidden fruit, and now they have an even deeper understanding of the knowledge of good and evil. So they don't trust nobody. They see nakedness everywhere where there is none. They've eaten the fruit. Next part.